I checked my ailing father's bank account and realized my successful older brother had secretly stolen his entire retirement fund. My life, until 4 months ago, was defined by two central pillars: the quiet worry about my parents' retirement and the immense, frustrating pride I felt for my older brother, Mark. Mark was the golden child. He was 10 years older, a successful investment banker in New York, with a salary I could only dream of and a picture-perfect life that he frequently showcased on social media. My sister, Clara, and I were the dependable ones. We lived locally, managed our own humble families, and handled the daily needs of our aging parents. Mark was the financial genius, the one who was supposed to be their safety net. He was the one who assured us he had optimized their portfolio and handled their future. Our father, Richard, had worked as a foreman his entire life, building up a modest but secure retirement fund through decades of grueling labor. He was diagnosed with a rapidly progressing form of Alzheimer's 4 months ago. The stress of the diagnosis forced us to confront the reality of long-term care, which, as Mark quickly reminded us from his Manhattan apartment, was devastatingly expensive. Mark insisted on taking over the paperwork. "I'm the professional, guys," he'd say on our weekly family calls. "You handle the emotional stress, I'll handle the financial strategy. I'll put Dad's accounts into a high-yield trust to cover the nursing home." We all readily agreed. Mark was the expert, and honestly, Clara and I were emotionally exhausted. We signed the power of attorney over to him, trusting his supposed financial acumen and, more importantly, his fraternal loyalty. That trust was the most catastrophic mistake of our lives. The truth began to surface last week. My father's insurance provider requested a complex, immediate payment that Mark, usually so prompt, was ignoring. I texted Mark for the account information. He delayed, offered excuses about being busy, and finally sent me only the name of the bank and the account number, but not the login credentials. The delay made the quiet worry in my stomach turn into a sharp anxiety. I couldn't wait any longer. The insurance bill was due. I drove to my parents' bank, a small local branch my father had used his whole life. I presented the power of attorney and the required documentation. The teller looked at the account number and then, with a strange, hesitant pity, pulled up the information. I was looking for the healthy, six-figure balance Mark had always promised was there, the comfortable nest egg meant to cover the nursing home expenses. The balance listed was not six figures. It was $412.38. I stared at the screen, a cold sweat breaking out on my neck. My mind instantly raced to medical bills. Had the initial testing been that expensive? I asked the teller to print the full transaction history for the last 3 months since Mark took over. The printed statement was short, sparse, and devastating. There were no large medical payments. There were only 4 transactions that mattered, all dated within the first month after Mark gained power of attorney. 4 separate withdrawals, all massive, all labeled simply "transfer to external account." The transfers totaled $235,000. The entire sum of my father's life savings gone in 1 month. I felt physically sick. I knew with a certainty that crushed my soul where the money had gone. It didn't go to an external high-yield trust. It went to Mark. My successful older brother, the golden child, had systematically emptied our father's retirement account the moment he gained legal access, leaving my parents with nothing but a few $100s and the crippling diagnosis of Alzheimer's. I drove home in a daze, the financial statement burning in my lap. The betrayal wasn't just criminal, it was familial treason. He had waited until our father was cognitively impaired, unable to question him, and until Clara and I were emotionally exhausted to execute the perfect, brutal heist. He had stolen Dad's dignity and condemned my mother to financial ruin, all while maintaining his flawless, successful image hundreds of miles away. The money wasn't just gone. It had been converted into his lifestyle, his luxury apartment, his expensive cars, his social performance. I immediately called Clara, my younger sister. I didn't mince words. I just sent her a photo of the bank statement with the $412.38 balance highlighted. Clara's initial reaction was denial, followed by frantic, desperate calls to Mark. Mark, predictable in his deceit, didn't answer. He sent a single, patronizing text back. It's complicated. I moved the funds to a specialized private investment vehicle. Stop panicking. You don't understand high finance. But we did understand simple theft. We were left with a terminally ill father, a bewildered mother, and an empty bank account, all thanks to the one person who was supposed to be our strongest support. The fight to survive and to find justice had just begun. The coldness I felt seeing that bank statement transformed into a hard, protective fury aimed solely at my brother, Mark. His text, dismissing our panic with condescending talk of high finance, was the final arrogant insult. It proved he wasn't just a thief. He was a narcissist who genuinely believed his success granted him moral immunity. Clara and I were united, but we knew we couldn't just sue him. We had to expose him. We had to use his own arrogance as our weapon. Our first step was immediate. We revoked Mark's power of attorney. My father's condition meant he couldn't grasp the severity of the situation. He simply asked why Mark wasn't answering his calls. Our mother, overwhelmed and clinging to the image of her successful son, initially defended him, whispering, "Mark is smart, dear. He wouldn't steal. It must be complicated tax planning." It took hours, sitting her down with the stark reality of the empty bank statement and the nursing home bill she could no longer pay, for her defense to crumble into fragile disbelief. We contacted a lawyer specializing in elder abuse and financial fraud. The lawyer immediately saw the strength of our case. Mark's acquisition of the power of attorney coincided precisely with the depletion of the account, and his professional role added to the criminal intent. The lawyer's advice was to force a confrontation that would break his calm facade. We scheduled a mediation meeting in our local town, forcing Mark to fly back from his insulated life in New York. The mediation room was sterile and silent. Mark walked in, impeccably dressed, carrying a sleek briefcase. He treated the entire affair like a tedious business negotiation. He initially stuck to his lie. "The funds are invested, ladies. Highly illiquid. You need patience. Your emotional distress is clouding your judgment." I listened to his rehearsed performance, feeling a bitter shame that this man was my blood. When he paused, I finally spoke, my voice low and steady. "We know you transferred the money directly into your personal investment account, Mark. We cross-referenced the transaction codes with your bank's internal routing system. This isn't high finance. This is theft. You waited until Dad was unable to speak for himself and until we signed your permission slip. You stole our father's legacy to fund your lifestyle." Mark's confidence finally fractured. His face didn't collapse. It hardened into a mask of cruel entitlement. He launched into his defense, not of innocence, but of justification. "It was my money anyway. I was the one who was successful. I was the one who provided the prestige for this family. You two never did anything but stay local and collect modest paychecks. I deserved access to the funds. And frankly, Dad would have wasted it on stupid, unnecessary medical care. I needed to consolidate the assets." His outburst revealed the deep-seated resentment and superiority he felt toward us and our father. He saw his success as a right to plunder and our father's hard-earned money as his own personal bonus. He viewed his parents as liabilities to be managed, not people to be honored. The lawyer, witnessing this self-justifying arrogance, knew the case was won. The most damning piece of evidence, however, was something I found later, buried in an old email thread on my father's seldom-used email account. Years ago, my father, in a moment of pride, had asked Mark to create a detailed spreadsheet tracking the projected growth of his retirement fund. Mark had sent him the spreadsheet detailing the growth year by year, ending with the total $235,000 he expected to have upon retirement. The email was dated 2018. Mark knew the exact amount, the exact purpose, and the exact consequence of taking it. The meticulous planning was not for asset management, it was for asset theft. Clara and I left the mediation that day knowing that even if we didn't recover every penny, we had exposed him. We had broken the golden image of the successful son and revealed him as the lowest form of familial predator. The fight would be long and expensive, but the true damage had already been done. Mark was no longer our brother. He was our victimizer, and we would treat him as such. We prepared the criminal referral, knowing that his professional life, built on a foundation of lies and theft, was about to crumble. The day we filed the police report and the civil suit against Mark felt less like a quest for revenge and more like an amputation, a painful, necessary severing of a malignant part of our family. We provided the lawyer with the meticulous transaction history and the damning email, the one where Mark confirmed the original $235,000 retirement goal. The evidence was overwhelming, and within days, the New York authorities moved swiftly. Mark was arrested at his office for grand larceny and financial elder abuse. The news spread through the financial community like wildfire, shattering the golden image he had so carefully cultivated. His assets were immediately frozen. The arrest brought our mother to a breaking point. She couldn't process the legal reality that her eldest son, the successful banker, was now a criminal, facing jail time for robbing his own father. She continued to cling to the lie, whispering that Clara and I were jealous, that we were destroying his life. But the truth was delivered by the police report and the frozen accounts. She was forced to confront the fact that she had no money left to pay for her husband's rapidly accelerating care, and that her smart son had left them impoverished and vulnerable. The legal battle was complex and drawn out. We faced two grim realities. First, criminal charges rarely yield full restitution. And second, Mark had spent much of the money maintaining his extravagant fake lifestyle. We fought hard in the civil suit to trace and reclaim every possible asset. We successfully proved the money was taken via fraud under the power of attorney, making Mark liable. We managed to recover about half of the original retirement fund, enough to ensure Dad could be moved into a suitable care facility and that Mom could live modestly without being destitute. But the full $235,000 was gone, converted into expensive suits, exclusive memberships, and a life he felt entitled to. The recovery was a compromise, a painful lesson that justice rarely means receiving full compensation. The aftermath with our parents was heartbreaking. We had to file for guardianship over our father as his cognitive abilities declined rapidly. He would often ask for Mark, sometimes with pride, sometimes with confusion, never fully grasping the depth of his son's betrayal. My mother, stripped of her reliance on Mark's success, finally broke. She didn't apologize for defending him. Instead, she quietly moved into a smaller home and focused her life entirely on caring for my father, a silent penance for her years of blindness and pride. Our relationship with her is respectful, but forever scarred. The trust is gone, replaced by the grim knowledge of her capacity for self-deception. Clara and I became the new financial anchors of the family, sharing the burden of managing Dad's reduced funds and overseeing his care. Our bond deepened, forged in the crucible of Mark's devastating avarice. We look at each other now, no longer as the younger, less successful sisters, but as the only ones left with integrity, the ones who were forced to become guardians of our parents' dignity. Mark served a short prison sentence and was permanently barred from the financial industry. He was professionally destroyed and socially ostracized. He sent Clara and me one final arrogant letter from jail, claiming that we had ruined his potential and that he would have repaid the funds once his career truly took off. He maintained his self-justification until the end, proving that his avarice was a fundamental aspect of his character, not a temporary lapse. The quiet suffering of our father, the man who worked for decades only to have his security stolen by his own blood, is the enduring scar we carry. We may have recovered a portion of the money, but we lost our brother, we lost our mother's respect, and we lost the simple, comfortable illusion of having a safe family. The tragedy is that Mark's success was his biggest lie, and he paid the ultimate price to maintain it, leaving us, the dependable ones, to clean up the wreckage of his greed. That enduring financial struggle, combined with the moral betrayal, is the price we will always pay for Mark's ambition.